Okay, Dave Rothschild, photographer from Virginia, and welcome to episode number 3 of Because Why Not, where I take a single roll of film and I shoot the whole roll with the same theme or concept in mind. And for episode 3, we are shooting Suburban Nights on Kodak Tmax 3200, which I shot completely handheld. I wanted to create sort of a spontaneous, a little bit of a messy vibe with this. I wanted to have the freedom of movement. I wasn't going for technical perfection by any means. I was hoping to get some surprises, and I definitely did. So I'm going to go through the roll, some of the highlights, a few of the ones that didn't work great. And starting things off, we just have the very first shot of the roll, which is a Starbucks drive-through. It's a very common scene, obviously, in the suburbs. There's some light flaring going on. I just wanted to kick the roll off just to get things going. I'm not going to go in the exact order that I shot the frames, but this is the first frame of the roll. And I was sort of going for a Robert Adams' Summer Nights kind of vibe. And this one I was actually pretty happy with. This is a factory that's a little unusual that it's in the suburbs. I really like the highlights in the windows and some of the light reflections on the ground in the lower left. But this one I thought worked quite well. And I was going for sort of a, hey, it's after dark, things have quieted down. We have this lone car sort of being engulfed by the trees and the artificial light filtering through the trees in the upper right. And I like the solitude here. This is a Little League baseball field that I grew up playing baseball on and was really happy with the texture in the sky and just the overall vibe of the image. I probably played a lot of baseball games with the same vibe growing up, and so kind of a personal shot. This is one of the highlights from the roll. No pun intended. I shot exposing for the highlights, and it really crushed the shadows and created a very, very aesthetically pleasing image. Just the way the reflection on the sidewalk is glowing with the recent rain. And then we've got a self-portrait, which is me in my car. This image did not really work at all, but it gave me the idea that from now on, when I do this project, I'm going to shoot one self-portrait for each roll, just to try it. And then this is an actual parking garage that I shot from episode 1 of the series, where I was shooting from on top of this garage. I happened to be by it when I was out shooting and just thought I would make the shot. Nothing special, but wanted to include that. And here we have a suburban neighborhood corner. Was really happy with the way the light was sort of filtering diagonally across the back of that stop sign. And this suburban neighborhood's a lot older than typical suburban neighborhoods, so you have that old wooden fence. It just had a vibe that I was really, really feeling. And there are a lot of images like this where I'm turning a corner, capturing, one section of the landscape, going across horizontally from left to right, 3 or 4 different sections. And was going for the texture in the sidewalk here. And then we have this sort of classic suburban shot at night where you have the windows inside a house lit up. It came out too bright, I think, for what I was going for, but I think the actual composition itself works quite well. I just think it would be better maybe if it was a little bit darker. And this is one of my favorites from the roll as well. That same sort of mysterious, messy vibe. I shot this directly through my windshield. You have a lot of sort of light flare, and there's just enough information that you can kind of get a feel for what's happening, but I like how dark the background is. And this is that same factory that I shot earlier, but from the other side. I like how that light was splashed up against the wall, lighting it up, and then silhouetting that truck on the, sort of the lower right. And I like the texture in the sky as well. And I wanted to include this. This is just one of the most common things you see in the suburbs, just a street with some townhouses. Very, very sort of typical, kind of like that Starbucks drive-through shot. And this is one of the more unusual shots on the roll. This concrete slab said save the, and then the other slab said trees, but the trees was blocked off, so I couldn't really shoot it. My car lights are lighting it up, and it really kind of killed the background, but it does have sort of a mysterious vibe. Another suburban parking lot, creating some solitude here, really focusing on the ground with some of the cracks and the textures. There's actually a house in the bottom left filtering through the trees you can barely see on a small screen. Again, another corner just capturing, just after it poured rain, and just, a suburban corner. But I think it works. And I think it works better in black and white than in color. This entire roll, I think, creates a little bit more of a mystery when you keep it in black and white. And was really drawn to this tree the same way I would be during the daytime. Suburban neighborhood. This tree's probably been here for a long time. And here I think I was a little off with my angle. I was trying to capture that sign lighting up the stairs, but I think I'm a little too far to the left. I think I need to be a little bit more to the right, sort of like closer to 45 degrees, but I did capture some of it. I like the sky textures as well as that car. And then, like some of the images earlier, one of those really dark shooting the highlights shots, which sometimes kind of works, sometimes doesn't, depending on how you look at it. But I like how mysterious it can be when most of the image is black, but you have enough information, you kind of get a feel for where you are. And this is very time kind of stamped, where you have the July 4th fireworks sign in the background, so you kind of know what time of year it is. And this is one of the more busy, a lot going on kind of in the scenes, but I included it here. I like it. Again, another very quiet suburban parking lot with nature sort of overpowering things. And here, again, the street lights kind of lighting the foreground, and you can see just enough of the trees that there's some forest back there, which kind of gives it a little bit of a mysterious vibe on the other side of that fence, which I liked. And this is one of the more boring ones, I would say, just a classic scene from the suburbs, just a parking lot with an SUV and some, street lights. This is actually the other side of that Starbucks area. And I think this might have been the second shot from the roll. And this is that same factory that you saw earlier. And I found this space here where there's this fence and the factory and this light. And then I got some motion with the car, just kind of pulling things together. And I think this one works pretty well. Again, another quiet parking lot with nature overpowering. I just like the forms of the trees and just how dark and quiet the vibe is. I gotta say, this project was really, really fun, and I think I might do like some additional volumes of it. And then this is a brick church, and I was immediately drawn to how kind of strong the shadows of the leaves against the brick were, and pretty happy with it. I don't think the composition's great, but overall, I think I'm pretty happy with this one. This is sort of a classic, almost like a cliche at this point, of a older suburban house with the lights on inside and, the groomed yard and plants. Another corner, very straightforward, but I like that overpowering feel you get from nature when you include a good amount of the frame with some trees against the area that's, suburban. It does have a mysterious vibe at night. And this is one of the more urban shots, even though it is in the suburbs, but I like how all of these lights kind of harmonize. They're kind of all over the frame, these lights. Even within the garage, you can see these lights lit up. And I like the reflections on the ground. I think this one works pretty well. And this is one of those dark ones, again, where you have a lot of darkness, but enough light you kind of can tell what's going on. And I like that dichotomy where you kind of can see enough. Okay, I'm on a road, but there's a lot of darkness. There's a mysterious vibe to it as well. And this just caught my eye, just kind of past this house. There's this little bit older BMW, older house, overgrown, vines on the fence. Nothing special, but it definitely caught my eye, so I wanted to include it here. And then this is a church, beautiful church with these statues out front and these glowing lit up statues reflecting on the wet pavement. I think this one works pretty well. Again, we're getting pretty good texture in the sky, and I was pretty happy with this one. And this is the last one I'm going to share. This is another corner. This is actually leaving that factory area that you saw earlier in the roll. And Overall, I think I was pretty happy with this work. It was a challenge to get out and shoot after dark, or at dusk and shoot handheld. There were times where I could hear the shutter and I was like, oh, that was definitely too slow. I tried to be as steady as I can. But I like the fact that technically the images can be a little bit messy because it really kind of adds to the vibe of the time of day. And the fact that it's in black and white and is less descriptive can also enhance that as well. So I think when it works really well. Like that, through the windshield shot earlier, or maybe when the sidewalk was lit up in that shot. So I'm excited to kind of try this work again. In fact, I might try it with Delta 3200. But overall, this was fun. And let me know what you think in the comments down below, what you think I could have done differently, how you feel about the work. And until then, we'll see you next time for episode 4.